Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Finding the money to buy rental properties can be a challenge for a lot of people. Andres, it doesn't sound like you're having any trouble. How are you doing it?
So we're buying rentals with other people's money. Basically, we're raising funds from professionals, from people that are in business, doctors, lawyers, friends, family. And basically, we are raising capital to buy this property cash. And we refinance after 3 to 6 to 12 months. And then we pay them back. And that way we, buy a lot of rentals. And we don't use our own money.
Andres is using the BRRRR strategy to build out his rental portfolio. I love the BRRRR strategy. I think it's a great way to build out a rental portfolio. But the truth is, it's become a lot harder to do over the last couple of years. And on the show today, we're going to talk about how Andres is making the BRRRR strategy work today. We'll talk more about raising private money and how he's doing that. We'll talk about how he's fixing properties up. And we'll take a look at one of his deals. I want to see what Andres is paying for properties, how much he's spending on the rehab, and what his cash flow looks like after he does his refinance. Joining us on the show today from New Haven, Connecticut is Andres Bernal. We'll take a break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Andres. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
Andres, let's start off talking about your portfolio. What does your portfolio look like today?
So we have right now 32 doors. We're closing actually 6 doors on Thursdays in 2 days. And we own about 4.5 million worth of real estate, and about 2.7 it's debt. So the rest, I guess, is our net worth, right?
Yeah, and you've been able to do this without using much of your own money?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the beginning, I used my own money for the first 2 deals or so. And then I realized that I cannot scale without other people's money. Unless you make, $200,000-$300,000 a year, which, a lot of people don't make. I would say most people. Right. Then you won't be able to scale. So, so basically, we are acquire, I would say, 25 to 26 stores just like that, just using other people's money, creative financing, creative partnerships. Not creative financing, but creative partnership where I bring a friend or a family or someone, and they fund the whole deal. We maybe split the renovations, and then we split the equity, depending on what we agreed on. So sometimes I make partnerships where I have given 70% of equity, and we split 50-50 on cash flow. 80 up to 80% or 50-50. It depends on the complexity of the deal. But right now, what we're doing is we are raising money from people, average people, friends, family. And basically what we're doing is we are paying them an interest every single month. We send them a check. That way we keep them happy. And at the end of the 6 months, 12-month period, we pay them whole. So we pay them whatever they lend us.
Now, I want to dive into one of your deals and kind of walk through exactly what you're doing. But before we do that, let's look at your entire portfolio. When you look at all of your rental properties, how much total rental income do you bring in every month?
So we are grossing about $39,000. And that is we should be grossing about 42, 43. This is because we acquire properties that are not up to market value. We just bought it. So yeah, about 39,000.
Okay, so 39,000, but that'll go up as you're able to raise rent, I guess, as your leases come up. So
Yeah.
okay, so today you're at 39,000. Now, when you add up all of your mortgage payments for all of your rentals, how much are your mortgage payments?
So our mortgage payments are $23,150.
Okay. Now, for budgeting for repairs and vacancy and capex and utilities or other stuff that is going to come up on your properties, how do you do that? Like, do you have a certain percentage that you set aside or a certain dollar amount?
Yeah, so I set aside typically 15%, but I'm gonna just make a cautious about to your audience, because a lot of people just follows a formula, and there's not a simple formula for this. When you buy older homes, your capital expenditures and your repair and maintenance has to be higher. So I will suggest at least 20%. But when you buy houses that are newer and they're single family, or when you buy houses and you repair literally pretty much most of the items before you get your renter in, then you can budget, 12 to 15% of the gross rent.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, I mean, from my experience, it's really kind of like a crapshoot. Like, you really don't know what the expenses are going to be. I mean, you might get really lucky and nothing really comes up and you don't really have a lot of turnover and your expenses could be really low, or you could get hit with a whole bunch of stuff back to back. So it's almost like it's so hard to put a number on it, because you're really just trying to make an educated guess on what your expenses are going to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally agree with you, Dan. And I will say also that when you buy a property, one of my best advice I can give you is either if you have to repair the siding, or this is something that happens to us every week. If we buy a property and we know that we have to repair the siding when the weather gets good, or we know that we have to repair those boilers at some point this year, we set aside that money, and that way we don't have to worry about it. Now, a lot of people enter this market with no money, and I will highly suggest that you don't do that.
Yeah.
That's one of the mistakes that I made. You should have at least, people say 6 months of reserve. I say anywhere from 3 to 5 months, 3 to 6 months is okay, depending on what you're buying, obviously. But always have a realistic expectations on, like, oh, let me buy this property, and with that cash flow and that reserves, I'm gonna make those repairs. No, because sometimes like that boiler is not waiting for you, right?
Right.
So yeah.
All right. So you on average, it seems like you're setting aside 15% of the 39,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's about 6,000 a month. So all right, so you've got 39,000 in rent, you've got 23,000 in mortgages, and that includes your taxes and insurance too.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. And then $6,000 you're setting aside, and you actually set that aside. So even if you have a month where there's no expenses, you're setting $6,000 into maybe a separate account.
Yeah. So the way that I will say there's two ways where real estate investor calculate like real cash flow. One way could be, you set aside that money, and then you set aside the reserves, and then you get paid your cash flow like a set amount, or you can do it depending on what that month was. Like, if you have more repairs, more maintenance, more issues, then that month you get paid less cash flow. And then whenever the months are really good, that there's no problems, no nothing, then you get paid more. So it all depends which way do you want to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm gonna caution a lot of investors here that just say, hey, I'm just not gonna set aside these reserves. and then when one problem happens, oh, this real estate doesn't work. I buy properties from landlords just like that all the time, where they think that cash flow minus mortgage and insurance equals cash flow. Cash flow. Sorry, gross rents minus mortgage and insurance taxes equals cash flow. That formula is wrong, and I highly suggest that people don't follow
Yeah,
that.
I mean that's a great way to get into trouble by not
Yeah.
having that extra reserve. So okay, so after everything, I mean after you've got your reserves and your mortgages, it seems like you're making about 10,000 a month.
Yeah, give or take, yes.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, let's see how you did this because I think to make $10,000 a month without having much of your own money invested is really pretty awesome. So let's talk about one of your burrs and let's figure out how you did this. So tell us about this property. What was the condition like when you first bought it?
Yeah, so we bought it in May 2020. This is was a full burr, and I'm gonna just explain the steps so your audience can see. So here, so basically, we bought it in May 2020. We bought it from a wholesaler in the middle of COVID. Everybody was freaking out. I was like, this is our opportunity to buy real estate. So basically, we bought it from a wholesaler. We pay 144,000, and that property at the time was worth around 210. So I estimated repairs about 35,000. So when I didn't go to the property, it was middle of COVID. I sent my contractor. He gave me a bid. So then when we closed that property, we end up spending almost 50,000. And the reason why is because the house was built in 1850, which is pretty old. And we had to repair some things that we didn't see on the walkthrough. And, things came up where the decision was like, oh, should I repair it now or I should repair it later? I'm the kind of investor that tackle things right away because I don't want any problems. So basically, we we had a tenant there that didn't was not paying. So we work cash for keys with that person, meaning we offer them cash for them to leave. It took 2 months. It worked out. We found a solution. Then we rent the first floor, I believe, for 1,400. It was a duplex, and the second floor we rented out for 1,600 because it had one more bedroom. So yeah, so that house was bringing $3,000, and then we refinanced, and then we were able to pull all our money out. Most of it, I would say 90% of the money that we put, and it was a win-win situation. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the financing. So you had a friend of yours that loaned you the money to buy the property. Did this friend gave you the entire 144,000 to buy the property?
So we actually partner, and the way that we structured the deal is she bought the property cash. We split the renovations, and then she has 70% of the equity, and I will have 30% of the equity. Now, on the cash flow side, because the cash flow was more appealing to me, we were 50-50 partners. And this is one of the creative ways that people can do. And the reason I didn't learn this anywhere, I just like, this is what I want, this is what she wants. And that way, that's how you find partners, when you can offer a value to them and you can obviously get something and reward it for it. So yeah, when I say 70% of equity means that whatever equity we have when we sell the house or refinance, she owns 70%.
Now, the value that you were bringing to the table was that you found the deal, you coordinated all the work. Like the value that she gave was the money that she was your funding partner. Is that right?
Yep. I realized, like, what is the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is that we have some money out of the deal. And this is one thing that I see across all channels, across all social media, and is that people say, "Oh, if I don't get all my money back on a burr, this is not a good burr." That is totally wrong. Even if you make like even if you, let's say that at the end of the day when you're trying to refinance you have to pay 10 or 20,000, just calculate how much it was. $1,000 per cash flow every single month. If you see a return, it's pretty good. If you only put $20,000 or you leave $10,000 in the deal. So I will highly suggest for you to not get blind because you don't get all your money back. I mean, ideally, yes, you get your money back, but that's not what burr it's all about. Getting all the money back. It's getting trying to get most of the money out.
Right. And I think it's really hard to do a perfect burr where you get all the money out. I mean, it's possible and people do it, but I think more times than not, a lot of people are going to have some money in the deal. And it's not the end of the world if you have some money tied up in the property. Now, this property, it sounds like you were making about $1,000 a month after all your expenses.
Yeah, $1,000 for both of us. So we were doing 500 each.
500 each. Okay. And now this property has come full circle. So you ended up selling this property. And how much money did you make on the sale?
So we sold it for $310,000, and we end up making $130,000. And because it was a big, obviously gain, we were not wanting to, pay the taxes. So we decided to 1031 exchange, which is basically you're selling a property and you're exchanging it for another property without having to pay any taxes. There's, some rules and regulations and all that, but it turned out to be really, really good.
Now, why did you sell? I mean, it sounds like this property was making you $500 a month. You had fixed it up. It seems like a good property. Why did you want to sell it?
So in first place, it was giving us a little bit of trouble. Part because it was an old property, but part is because the tenants were high maintenance. Whatever they they were a little high maintenance, so it was giving us a little trouble. It was giving me because I was the one that managed the property. So we decided to buy for something that gave us more cash flow, and we decided to buy something newer with less headaches. I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And, I think that's an important thing to keep in mind with rental properties too, that when you buy a property, you're not stuck with it forever. I mean, this property was giving you some hassle. You took your equity, you moved it to a new property, and the new property that you bought, has that been less hassle?
Yeah, absolutely. So we bought so this house was a duplex. We bought another duplex, but we bought it was a huge duplex. I mean, each unit have 4 bedrooms, and it was rented for students. So the cash flow here, it was double actually. Wow. Because this property was bringing $5,000 in gross rent, and the cash flow ended up being $2,000, so $1,000 each. And it's such a big relief. And this is something that I recommend for more experienced investors. If you have a property that's giving you headaches, don't try to fight it. Like, it's not the same that a property gives you headache for like 2 to 3 months, but like if a property is giving you headache for the whole year, like the whole year that you own it, it's problems after problems for any reason that's something that like it just always comes up. I will highly suggest for you to sell it, especially in this hot market, and maybe exchange it for something better.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you buy a property right, I mean, you bought this property way under market value. You had that equity there, and then you got lucky with the market appreciating at the same time. So you were able to get out of the property. But if you buy a property right and you have equity in the property, you're always going to be able to get out of it. So, as long as the market doesn't crash or something. But yeah, that's a good lesson. And so your partner is still involved in the new property?
Absolutely, yeah. We all we did was transfer ownership from one property to the other,
Okay.
and she's great. She's awesome.
Now, for the other burrs that you've done, how have you raised money? Like, how have you found people that were interested in investing in your deals?
Yeah, so I will. Yes. So first, I will say the first is friends and family, and the reason why is because they trust you more than a person that doesn't trust you, right? The person that you met a few days ago. So I will highly suggest for you to do that, and that's what we tackle. So the other bird that we did was we bought this on the market. We bought a side by side duplex, so it was 4 units. They were side by side. They were and side by side. There was one how do you call it parking one street that divides them, and basically what we did was we just raised we had to pay $290,000 cash. So the way that we fund this was I have another business partner from my other business, and he lent us 200,000, and then me and my partner came up with 90,000, and then we split that each. And the way that we were able to find the 90,000 was because we have HELOCs and business lines of credit. We knew this was a home run deal 6 months ago. And when we underwrite deals, we always think about what is the worst that could happen. What if our market drops 20%? Can we still do the burr strategy and maybe leave a little bit of money? Can we recoup all the money?
That's a good point. It's always good to be prepared for the worst case scenario. The market probably isn't going to drop 20%, but you never know. And it's always good to think about what could happen. If anybody wants to reach out to Andres, I've got a link to his Instagram on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 418. If Andres inspired you and you're ready to buy your first property or you want to add to your portfolio, the lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. You can track her down at ridgelendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you hit that follow button. I put out a new interview every single Tuesday, and if you're following the show, you'll get notified as soon as the next episode comes out. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.